Christopher Dorner was a former LAPD officer who went on a murderous rampage throughout Southern California in February of 2013. This rampage stretched through Orange County, Los Angeles County, Riverside County, and finally, San Bernardino County. Christopher Dorner joined the LAPD in 2006, but was soon called to the United States Navy to deploy, then returned to the LAPD in July of 2007. While working for the LAPD, Dorner filed a complaint against a fellow officer for excessive force while on a call handling a man who had dementia and schizophrenia. LAPD launched an internal investigation into Dorner's complaint. Investigators interviewed several witnesses, including fellow officers, as well as the man who caused the disturbance. The investigators concluded that Dorner had lied, and the excessive force did not happen. In 2008, Dorner was fired from the LAPD. Dorner did file an appeal to the California Court of Appeal. On October 3, 2011, the appeals court concluded that once again, Dorner's allegations against his fellow officer were not credible. Just under 2 years later, his rampage would begin. On February 3, 2013, 28-year-old Monica Kwan and 27-year-old Keith Lawrence were found shot to death in a vehicle in front of their condo complex. Monica was the daughter of Randall Kwan, the man who represented Dorner at his 2008 dismissal. A man Dorner feels had wronged him. The next day, February 4th, 2013, Dorner posts his manifesto stating his motives and naming who he feels is to blame for his dismissal. With the manifesto stating Dorner would be targeting Randall Kwan and his family, with the manifesto released, Chris Dorner was named the prime suspect in the deaths of Monica Kwan and Lawrence Keith. A protection detail was also in place for Randall Kwan and his family members, as the location of Dorner was unknown. On February 7th, 2 police officers assigned to the protection detail received a tip around 1 a.m. that Dorner was spotted at a gas station located in Corona, California. Officers headed to the area of Dorner's sighting. In this area, they located a truck that matches the description of Dorner's vehicle, a 2005 dark gray Nissan Titan. The driver exited the vehicle and opened fire on the police car, grazing the head of one of the officers. Just 20 minutes later, in the neighboring city of Riverside, 2 police officers were ambushed while sitting in their patrol car. Sadly, one of the officers, Michael Crane, succumbed to his injuries. With 3 deaths and 2 injured officers, local authorities were on high alert. Authorities from Los Angeles County, Riverside County, Orange County, and San Bernardino County all assisted in the search for Chris Dorner. On February 7th, 2 women were driving through a Torrance neighborhood on their newspaper route. LAPD officers assigned to the protection detail in the area believed this was Dorner attempting to locate another one of his targets and opened fire on the vehicle. One woman was struck twice, while the other received cuts on her hands. Thankfully, both women would survive. Hours later, Dorner's vehicle was found burned and abandoned on a remote road in the city of Big Bear. Authorities believed Dorner to be hiding in the mountains. By this time, media had begun covering the case and tips began to flood in. Panic began to set in for the locals in the area, and fear began to rise as no one knew where exactly Dorner was. Some believed he had abandoned the vehicle, then headed south to Mexico. Others believed he came back down the mountain and was in Los Angeles. Some believed he was hiding in the forest. On February 12th, San Bernardino Sheriff's Department received a report of a carjacking. Wildlife Fish and Game officers spotted the white Dodge truck and identified Dorner as the driver. Authorities gave chase and ended at a cabin in Big Bear where Dorner opened fire on two sheriff officers, striking and killing Detective Jeremiah McKay. This cabin was just yards away from the police command center that was set up to locate Dorner. Christopher Dorner had now killed 4 people and injured several others. Tensions were high as multiple police agencies from several counties surrounded the cabin with Dorner barricaded inside. It was unclear at that time if Dorner was alone inside the cabin or if he had taken occupants hostage. Law enforcement attempted to make contact with Dorner via loudspeaker. When he did not respond, tear gas was deployed. When the tear gas and loudspeaker did not work in forcing Dorner out, a demolition vehicle was used to knock down one side of the cabin, and pyrotechnic tear gas was deployed. This caused the cabin to catch fire. Shortly after the flames in the cabin became visible, a single gunshot rang out from within the cabin. Ammunition located inside the cabin began exploding, keeping law enforcement at bay. The cabin then became engulfed in flames. Charred remains were pulled from the wreckage and later confirmed to be that of Christopher Dorner. Dorner's cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the head. Law enforcement was heavily criticized for their actions, ranging from the original complaints filed by Dorner, the way the investigation was handled, and even accused of deliberately setting the cabin on fire. Law enforcement denies this claim. Christopher Dorner had run a rampage across Southern California, taking innocent lives and leaving demolition in his wake. Could this have been avoided? If his original complaints were handled different, could this have been a different outcome? Could law enforcement agencies have done more to stop Dorner? This case is tragic and full of unnecessary violence. I do hope the friends and family of the victims have closure that they deserve.